Hi guys, this is gsno.com and I'm here with a review of the Xiaomi 12 Lite. It's supposed to be one of the most important mid-rangers this year on account of the fact that the Mi 11 Lite last year and the Mi 11 Lite NE were pretty important in their own way. Now, this handset does keep a few things from its predecessor, but it also upgrades to a 108 megapixel camera, an AMOLED screen with 120Hz refresh rate, and it's got the familiar Snapdragon 778G CPU. The price is $380 and it's going to compete with the Motorola Edge 30 and the Galaxy A53. At the same time, it has a pretty interesting design in the way it catches the light and the camera approach, which feels a bit like it's part of the Xiaomi 12 series because it actually is. Now, I should probably also mention that we have the flat frame here, and somehow it also reminds me of the Redmi Note 11 combined with the Xiaomi 12. Bonus, dual speakers, 67 watt charging, and also infrared. Okay, so design-wise, we get the device in black, light green, and light pink. It measures just 7.3 millimeters in thickness and weighs 173 grams. It catches the light in this pearly manner. It feels a bit like a combination between a Galaxy A series device and a Motorola Edge 20 or 30 device. It's very well built. It's got glass at the front, it's got glass at the back side, and a plastic frame, a flat plastic frame, which helps the grip. I feel it's a bit wide for one-hand usage, but in general the grip was fine in my book. The screen bezels are medium-sized, but the punch hole is a bit too big for my taste. The back side does draw a few fingerprints here and there, but you also have a case bundle in the box. The buttons are placed in a pretty handy manner, they're easy to reach, and I have to say it's a pretty nice grip and build for a mid-range handset overall. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, we're operating here on account of an AMOLED panel, 6.55 inches, the same diagonal as the predecessor. It has a Full HD Plus resolution and 120Hz refresh rate, plus Dolby Vision and HDR10+. The aspect is 20:9, and the bezel is, as I said before, medium-sized. Now let's get this clip going because it's our usual test clip, and the visual experience goes like this. As you can see, the punch hole is a bit big here and it has a black highlight around it. Not a huge fan of those curved corners, but overall this panel is bright, crisp, vividly colored, although at times it feels more like an LCD rather than AMOLED. It's not a huge top level AMOLED, it's a medium level AMOLED. Still crisp, vivid and all that, plus wide view angles, and solid when it comes to the contrast when you're watching it in the sunlight. And by the way, Xiaomi provides us with a special video toolbox, which is available here for some enhancements for acoustics and visuals. The pixels of the device have a pentile matrix arrangement, and when it comes to the brightness, we achieved a pretty impressive 615 lux units. It's above Samsung Galaxy A53, above Realme 9 Pro Plus. It's also below Huawei Nova 10 Pro and the Motorola Edge 30. Now, as we've seen on all the other Xiaomi phones lately, Xiaomi is pretty generous with the options for the screen. We have the always-on features here. We have the display features here, which include brightness, reading mode, refresh rate, which can be set to 60 or 120 Hz. We have text size, font size, and a ton of color options: vivid, saturated, original color, adaptive colors, color temperature, and if you go here, there's a whole array of things you can tweak, from hue to saturation, value, contrast, gamma, and so much more. But I suggest you keep things on vivid. We're done with the screen, being pretty satisfied with it. We go further now and find that the CPU is a very familiar Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G. Why familiar? Because this 6nm chip was also seen on tens of other mid-range phones. Among them, we also saw it on the Xiaomi 11 Lite new edition last year, and quite a few other Motorola, Realme, Redmi devices, and more brands, including Huawei and Honor, sometimes in 4G versions. It's an octa-core chip, which is accompanied in this case by, let's see, 8 gigs of RAM LPDDR4X and 128 gigabytes of storage UFS 2.2. As far as I know, there's no microSD here, most likely. There's no lag and no problem in games. You shouldn't experience any sort of overheating, which is always good news. Now, when it comes to the benchmarks, we go here and we have Antutu 9. The score is just above Galaxy A52s and Realme 9 Pro Plus, as you can see for yourself. It's below Huawei Nova 10 Pro and the Honor 70. we go to Geekbench 5 now, and we're treated to a score just above Huawei Nova 9 and the Motorola Moto G100. At the same time, in this test, we're below Honor 70 and the Xiaomi 11T. GPU-wise, I'll leave it to 3D Mark, Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, just above iPhone 11 and OnePlus 6T, which are older devices, definitely not a heavy hitter with that Adreno 642L. It's above those phones I mentioned, but it's also below the Huawei Nova 9 and the Honor 70 and even the Galaxy S20. It's a typical mid-range behavior for a phone of the year 2021 or 2022. You can see here some of the other results. Doesn't pack a lot of punch, but it's enough to play most games in a satisfying manner. We achieved 32.6 degrees Celsius in benchmarks and 32.2 in games, making this one of the cooler phones out there. Keeps it cool at all time, that doesn't get overheated. As far as the battery is concerned, we have a 4300 mAh unit with 67 watt charging, a charger in the box, while the predecessor had a 4250 mAh unit. Now, when it comes to the actual results of the battery tests, we're here with the video playback. We achieved an impressive 17 hours and 51 minutes. It's a solid result. It goes above the Xiaomi Mi 11 Lite 5G and the Motorola Edge 30. It stays below the Xiaomi 11 Lite 5G New Edition and below the Galaxy A53. Also below the Realme 9 Pro Plus. When it comes to continuous usage, here we are at the 15 hours and 30 minutes mark. This is actually more impressive than the one before. Above Realme 9 Pro Plus, above Samsung Galaxy A53 and the Motorola Edge 30, below the Motorola G52, and below the predecessor Xiaomi 11 Lite 5G New Edition. Also below Vivo V23. I'm pretty satisfied with the charging, 45 minutes for a full juice up, and after 15 minutes you're at 45%, which is not half bad. Okay, so we also have some settings like battery saver, ultra battery saver, and optimized charging. And now we proceed to the speakers. We have this one at the bottom here. We have this one at the top here, and a bunch of tweaks available in the audio section. These are stereo speakers, but this time we only have Dolby Atmos, we don't have Harman Kardon. So if you go here, you have your sound settings, actually not those ones, but rather these ones. Dolby Atmos, a bunch of presets, video, music, voice, and dynamic, graphic equalizer, customizable via genres and a 10-channel equalizer, and a few more. And now it's time to listen to some tunes, but not on YouTube, because we got flagged the last time, even for a copyright-free song. I'm going to try some SoundCloud. Okay, so here we are with SoundCloud, and we're going to listen to one of my own compositions. Here we go. Okay, so you get the idea. Once again, if you have recommendations, a free YouTube channel with free music, copyright free, feel free to post them in the comments. The experience is loud, actually too loud for its own good. There's distortion at top volume. 70% volume is the ideal you can achieve. Nice high notes, nice voices, but the bass was underwhelming. Okay, and not a big discrepancy between speakers, even though the bottom one is definitely the more powerful one. Here, when it comes to the volume tests, we achieved 76.5 decibels with the top speaker using an acoustic sample, 79.4 decibels at the bottom speaker. With this value, we surpassed Samsung Galaxy A53 and the Motorola Edge 30 Neo, but we stayed below the Motorola Edge 30 regular and the Honor 70. In games, we got a bit higher with 98.9 decibels, above Realme 9 Pro Plus and Galaxy A53, but also below Motorola Edge 30 and the Honor 70. And here we are with the camera. The front one is cut in the screen and we're in for a surprise. This 32 megapixel baby has autofocus and HDR. If you go to the back side, I would say it's a typical camera setup with a 108 megapixel camera this time around as the main shooter, 8 megapixel ultra wide and 2 megapixel macro. It's a combo we've seen way too often. It's actually similar to what we got on the recently launched Xiaomi 12T. Okay, so it has a dual LED dual tone flash here and 4K 30 frames per second capture with gyroscope assisted electronic image stabilization. We have here a cute little toy, and I'm going to show you some of the camera modes: short video, vlog, movie effects, clone, full resolution 100 megapixels, documents, time-lapse, dual video, night, panorama, slow-mo and long exposure. The main sensor is an ISOCELL one from Samsung, ISOCELL HM2, which combines 9 pixels in one, also present on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, a Realme 8 Pro and the Redmi Note 10 Pro 5G. We got AI functionality here, we got grid lines, macro, tilt shift. This is the video section with a special steady video mode, and the Pro mode lets you do some raw capture and do a bunch of tweaks here. That's about it. It's time to put the toy aside and show you the gallery, which is filled with shots we've taken here, and quite a few of them. Okay, so here we are with the photos. Let's start with those taken outside during the day. Okay, so my first impression was that we're dealing here with a high-end phone from 3 years ago. That's the vibe I'm getting. By the way, pretty nice colors, pretty accurate, and I would say that the palette of colors is now larger than the one of the predecessor. Of course, if you're going to take ultra-wide shots, you should expect that the sides will be a bit deformed, and also worse details in the distance and also on the sides. However, once again, the colors aren't half bad, especially the green hues, which are usually problematic when it comes to the vegetation. And now the greens are turning into browns because it's the fall. Now, where this phone excels is in the close-ups. This is one example, and this is another one. Very good textures here, and even the macros look fine, even though we are operating at a lower scale. I'm talking about just 2 megapixels. As you can see, there's a lot of details here, so we have a pretty solid main camera sensor. And even though the conditions were rather difficult, I'm talking about the intense colors of the flowers, this Xiaomi phone seems to handle them like a champ. Pretty nice focus. I didn't struggle to take those close-ups or macros, so that's another bonus point. And as you can see, we even caught a bee in action, which is not exactly easy to do, with a water drop next to it in a very poetic image. And we have quite a few of these shots. Okay, so selfies. My colleague took these selfies. I would say they're quite good, especially coming from the two predecessors. I actually remember that I considered the Xiaomi Mi 11 Lite 5G inferior to the Mi 10 Lite, where the selfies were a bit better in my book. And you can actually take them in full resolution, the full 32 megapixels, which is not a small feat. And several other selfies here. You can see the wrinkles on the forehead, you can see the threads of hair on the head, nice eye texture, nice expression and nice focus, an all-around good selfie experience. And once again, a solid set of macros and close-ups, which is where the camera probably excels. Even though those won't look as good on a computer screen or on a TV set, considering that they're just 2 megapixels in size. And even with the sun in front of us, we did quite fine, so you won't get many objections from me when it comes to the photos of the phone. I mean, yes, indoors there's a bit more noise than expected, and the ultra-wide camera isn't much when it comes to distance and the edges of the image. But all in all, among the mid-rangers this year, this one would probably catch a top 7, top 10 even. It can fight the Honor 70 and Huawei Nova 10 Pro by about 80%, 85% of their achievements. Okay, so let's see the low light photos, which honestly aren't half bad unless you're taking the ultra wide shots. I mean, the colors are there, the details are there, and even the zoom is decent considering we don't have a telephoto camera, while overall I don't feel that it's a huge upgrade from the predecessor unless you actually go ahead and watch the photos from last year, and only then I was convinced that something has changed. We got rid of the annoying orange or yellow hue, that's for sure. The details have improved a bit, and I would say that the brightness is a bit higher now. An interesting fact, I would say it's a fun fact, if you look at the LEDs here in this logo, you can actually see them, unlike the recently tested Sony Xperia 5 Mark IV, which would have been a flagship and didn't show those LEDs. So details wise, I'm quite happy here, but to achieve the maximum photo prowess, you should probably stick with the night mode and probably avoid the ultra-wide captures, which may deform the image and enlarge the street light sources. Even though you can quite see it in some of these pictures, ultra-wide is not that impressive. You can actually see it here. The lights are a bit of a mess. Okay, so an improvement from the predecessor, that's for sure when it comes to low light. Let's talk about videos now. For that, I'm going to employ this app here, which will, by the way, show you that we have a huge amount, 22 videos. Okay, so many of them are taken while walking around, so stabilization is definitely tested. Let's check out this one. Okay, so interestingly, I didn't enjoy the Full HD videos taken by the phone. I only enjoyed the 4K ones, and believe it or not, stabilization was actually better on the 4K clips. In general, it may seem fine, stabilization on this small screen, but you'll see some trepidation and vibration on the larger screen if you check out the Full HD clips. Once again, 4K is the way to go. Quite a few details, but actually remember being pleasantly surprised by its predecessors, Mi 10 Lite and Mi 11 Lite, so hard to say if things have really evolved. Okay, so selfies. The autofocus definitely helps. Stabilization isn't the best in the world. You can feel every step, left, right, left, right. I love the texture of the face and the way the background is slightly blurred. Too bad for the stabilization, otherwise it would have been a pretty solid vlogging camera. This is the focus test, alternating between the flower and the background in a very snappy manner. Okay, so focus done, stabilization done. Let's see what else. Maybe some colors this time. Here, for example, you can see a lot of colors, and once again the focus in place. The problem that this phone has, and if you go to the earlier shots you can definitely tell that there's a problem with the intensity of the colors. I'm talking about the usual things plaguing mid-range phones. I mean, exposure is too high, saturation is too intense. But once again, that only seems to happen on Full HD. Somehow 4K sets up the bits and bytes a bit better. Lovely texture here of the sprinkler. Nice motion, and we even have a slow-mo of it, if I remember correctly. Let's see, maybe this one? Nope. This one? Nope. Oh, it's actually this one. Check it out. We actually caught the slow motion of the person with the dogs and the sprinklers. Pretty impressive if you ask me. Okay, and that was gimmicky. I should probably mention that we haven't evolved a lot from the predecessor, which did some 4K filming of its own in a very solid manner, so there you have it. Stick to 4K, Full HD is nothing to write home about, stabilization is decent, and this is a video indoors, which a bit more noise than I expected. By the way, solid microphones all around. And finally, here we are with the nighttime video. A bit too orange for my taste. Many reflections, impressive quantity of light, so much so that we saw the clouds, a bit of ghosting when panning, and the street lights were a bit big. Unimpressive stabilization, it shows its typical mid-range, I would say, origins. Okay, we're done with the camera. I think it's time to discuss the connectivity. As you can probably tell, this is a dual SIM, dual nano SIM phone. It provides you with 5G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, dual band GPS, NFC. There's an infrared emitter here at the top side and an USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom. The calls were pretty loud and clear, and there's an interesting thing here that you cannot exactly see the earpiece. You have to look closely. It's one of the slimmest earpieces I've ever seen. Now, aside from that, we also did a bunch of tests. When I say tests, I mean speed tests, and here we are with the results. When it comes to 5G, 552 megapixel in download, 45.9 megapixel in upload. When it comes to Wi-Fi, 802 over 694, which is pretty impressive. That's download and upload respectively. I would say we passed the tests with flying colors. Okay, so let's talk about the software. This is MIUI 13 on top of Android 12. The leftmost home screen is present here in the guise of a series of news. While you can see that the interface is rather typical for a MIUI device. It has a split section with the notifications on the left and the quick settings on the right side, but you can also group them together. The app drawer is present, divided into categories: communication, entertainment, photography, tools, news and reading. And we also have your customization options, including widgets. However, the widgets are of the old school variety. We don't have stacked widgets, we don't have 3D widgets, we don't have those details which came with Android 13 or even Android 12 on other devices. Security takes care of your optimization. It scans for issues, scans for viruses, boosts the speed, has a Facebook cleaner and a game turbo. And for security, I have opted for face unlock, which is quite fast, but there's also a fingerprint scanner, which is placed in the screen. You can probably see it signaled here around this side. Okay, now aside from that, let's see what else we have here. We have a variety of extra features here. There's the About Phone section, there are connectivity options, there's the always on display and lock screen. You can customize the always on display experience here with quite a few features. Notification effects, the sides will light up once you get a notification. You have the home screen, wallpaper, themes, password and security. Privacy protection is here. You can see which apps access your resources, special permissions, battery settings, and extras. We have the gesture shortcuts, quick ball, screen recorder, one-handed mode, clear speaker, and memory extension. You can expand the memory by up to 3 GB of RAM, virtually of course. There is also an enterprise mode feature. You can see here how many minutes you've been using the phone and in what applications. And you also have your special features like the heart rate with the fingerprint scanner, the light mode, the second space, front camera assistant, and floating windows. There are also the extras. So for example, if I'm watching a clip on YouTube, I'll get a recommendation with this side here, the video toolbox. And I also get a toolbox when I'm in a game like this one here. This is Game Turbo and it's triggered like this, helping me to boost the performance, do some recording and other things like that. In a nutshell, that's MIUI 13 on top of Android 12, and I almost forgot something. It's the multitasking. As you can see, I'm using buttons right now, but I could have also opted for swipes. So swiping from the side would be back, swiping up would be home, and swiping in the L shape would be recents. And by the way, recents look like this. Okay, back to the game. You know what it means. Usually we play a game at the end of the review, so it's time for the verdict. Okay, so this is Xiaomi 12 Lite. The pros and cons are the following. So on the pro side, we have a cute looking phone, particularly if you look at its back side. It's pretty for sure. It's also comfy on account of the flat frame. And I would also probably mention that it's youthful, it's got a bright screen, it doesn't overheat, even in games, solid battery life, some nice selfies, and finally we have autofocus, nice close-ups, solid macros, nice colors all around, pretty decent night mode, and good stabilization when filming. Fast connectivity as well. Those are the pros. On the cons, we just have a last year CPU and not even the upgraded version, Snapdragon 778. The speakers may be stereo, but they lack bass. There's lots of vibration for the body of the device when listening to music or playing games. The sound is a bit intense at maximum volume. You feel the need to play it at about 70% volume. I would also mention that the macros feel a bit poor when viewed on a larger screen. And also the ultra-wide camera isn't that impressive if you look at the sides and also at the nighttime pics. Okay, so there's also some saturation problems every now and then, which can appear, especially for the videos and some of the photos. Okay, so I already encountered the gamer. I'm barely alive. Okay, so that's the core of the game that you're getting here. You basically have to survive. It's sort of like a battle royale, but with a twist. Everything is happening very fast. Okay, I mentioned the pros and cons. And I should also add that we don't have IP certification, and we're also lacking micro SD, just so you know. That was an annoying monkey who spat at me. Okay, so as we keep playing the game, I should probably also mention other things like the target audience for this mid-range phone. It's the type of phone who will not disappoint. It should be lag-free for about 2 years, I predict. Hopefully 2 years of Android updates as well. 3 years would be nice, but I'm not very sure about it. So most likely just 2 years. It's not a huge leap from the predecessor, let's get that straight. The predecessor was actually pretty good itself, although in some areas it was inferior to the Xiaomi 10 Lite, because that phone was a very good one. Actually, I will remember it for a few years to come. Now, aside from that, you're getting a clear upgrade of night mode and selfie camera. You can do some vlogging, but more with photos rather than videos. Also, the simple fact that this phone can compete with the Honor 70 and Huawei Nova 10 Pro while being cheaper by about $100–200, it's no small feat. So that's probably the most important thing about it. Of course, MIUI could have been fresher and newer, but if that's the only problem, you can go ahead and buy it. So gamers will be happy with it, people taking selfies will be happy with it, and people traveling and taking nighttime shots of cities will also be pretty happy. Stabilization is not bad, so I would see it in the hands of a young gamer and traveler. However, this year the price point is a bit higher than the predecessors, but I'm sure that if you follow the trend of the predecessors, it should be cheaper about the year end, so wait for a month or two before buying it, because you may receive a special Black Friday offer. That's the recommendation I have. So a solid rival for the Motorola Edge 30, for the Honor 70 and Huawei Nova 10 Pro with lesser selfie abilities. That's it from us, jason.com. Hope you enjoyed this review. Goodbye.